URDs, and I'd like to just go through them real quick, like, and get some quick thoughts. You did mention the one about the accountability. And so, anything being done to stop the abuses and overtaxation caused by urban renewal in this session? And are you in favor of eliminating or restructuring URD laws? And should boards remain unelected? Should the community be allowed to vote on URD boards? And will you vote to outlaw URDs in Idaho? Jim, you're ready to go.
Well, I'll start the process, and I think rather than have one person hog all of it, I think it's something we can pass out. One of the tax bills in revenue tax concerned URDs, and it was very interesting. When the freeze testimony came up, the mayor from Nampa came up to testify, a very nice lady, and she made a statement that said, the services required to service the new growth are not being paid for by new growth in Nampa. Right? Okay. And I asked her to expand. She says that they use impact fees for transportation, but they don't have anything to pay for new growth. And then the follow-up, I said, well, they use a lot of urban renewal, and we talked about how that increment is going to the urban renewal district and not going to those services that new growth is bringing in. And the comment, she was very nice, and she said, well, that's a very touchy subject in Nampa, and we don't like to discuss that. And I understand, and it is a touchy subject, and no one wants to understand it. So Representative Moyle has introduced a bill in revenue tax that would protect the transportation portion of a budget from being taken up by the increment that the urban renewal district takes. So that would limit the tax shift, because if that doesn't happen, that tax shift comes and we all end up paying for that portion of transportation. There are other plans to perhaps, if with all this new growth coming in, we don't want to shift taxes to the people that aren't in URD districts, and whether it's transportation, first responders. There's some things coming about that to try to make it a little more fair. So on that subject, I think there is, and I don't know where that's going to go. It's been introduced, it hasn't had a second hearing, but that is coming.
Yeah, just a little bit on urban redevelopment. Mary, Senator Souza is the queen of urban renewal in that fight. One thing I've noticed, I've only, this is my 6th year, it's supposed to be for blighted areas. I'm waiting to see a blighted area. And the other thing is, I think we need to kind of start over on it. I was working on a bill that on your tax notice, there's a box for your URD to show, Senator Souza, correct me if I'm wrong, but I had a few calls that said, hey, we're not seeing anything in our tax notice that shows what URD area we're in. So anyway, the tax committee's supposed to be working on that. But Senator Souza appeared in front of our committee the other day on was it eminent domain or URD? And she should have gotten hazard duty pay for appearing there because of the opposition to what she was trying to do for the citizens. Anyway, I just hope you talk about that, Mayor.
And when it comes to urban renewal, part of the dichotomy we have is, in living in a diverse state like we do, is that there are many areas and cities in the state that don't abuse urban renewal. And so those legislators from those areas don't want to see any change. And so we have areas like what we've seen here in Kootenai County, Ada County, Canyon County, where there are abuses. And so as we try to change the law to deal with the abuses that we see, other legislators who are good people don't have those abuses, and the things that we try to put in as a fix, they see as a roadblock. And I'm not justifying what they're doing. All I'm trying to explain to you is why it's so difficult. And I always use this example. I said, you'd have a different view of urban renewal if your city took $20 million to take a park and a parking lot and turn it into a park and a parking lot. But that doesn't happen in Rupert and Burley and Twin Falls and Idaho Falls. They don't do that. They take areas that are either virtually totally undeveloped, they're not waterfront, they're not places that would be developed by the private market, and they put in roads and sewer so that places like Chobani and Cliff Bar and can build businesses there. And they've gone from, Twin Falls County has gone from about 8 or 9% unemployment down to less than 2, because that's how they use urban renewal. And it would be much less of a discussion here if our elected officials used it the same way, but they don't. And so it's very frustrating as we try to work on it. And I just want to clear up one thing. Senator Cheatham said that Senator Souza was the queen of urban renewal. She's actually the queen of urban renewal reform. And she's worked very hard. We try to work closely together on that, all of the legislators from here, to get through what we can. I think this next step that Senator Souza is working on with changing how eminent domain can be used will severely limit the use of eminent domain, and that's something that we can all agree on regardless of what part of the state you're from. But it's very educational to learn, having served on local government committee now for 8 years, to learn how different local governments operate. And my final example is our levy rate in Dalton Gardens is 0.004. Okay? There are some cities in Idaho that their levy rate is 0.074. So their levy rate is nearly 20 times higher in some cities in Idaho than mine in Dalton Gardens is. And so that's just an example of how different, and don't everybody try to move to Dalton Gardens, it's full. But that's just an example of how different cities function and how they do things, and all local governments vary by a lot. So urban renewal reform is hard because of the way it's abused. Here, if you ask me if I would vote to eliminate, I would say yes. Getting that passed is virtually impossible.
So in 2015 and 16, Kathy Sims, who I just honored in our Senate memorial because she passed away last summer. And so we have every year the Senate and the House have a memorial service for all previous members who have passed away during the past calendar year. And most of them are 10 or 15 years prior, had been in the Senate or the House. So it was very difficult to have the memorial, emotionally difficult to have the memorial for Kathy, who had just been serving, just very recently in the building. But Kathy and I were both on the interim committee to study urban renewal law in Idaho and talk about a political hot potato, because as Senator Vick just said, it is used differently in so many parts of the state. Some parts use it extremely well and very, very cautiously, keeping in mind the taxpayers who will be without that growing tax increment, the growing taxes on the development that they create with urban renewal, because it'll take 20 years. Urban renewal agencies get that amount of tax, the growth in the tax, for 20 years. That means the municipality, the city or county, don't get that to take care of the regular services that they still need to provide. That's the problem with urban renewal. But the biggest problem, and Kathy and I really tried to get this through in 2015 and 16, we wanted it to be a mandatory public election for urban renewal board members. We couldn't get that through. You have to understand there's huge money in urban renewal. Think of Boise, think of the large Nampa and all of that whole area. It's very, very politically powerful. These are big developers who get the advantage here. So what we did get, as a token, was that cities can create an ordinance that their urban renewal board must stand for public election.
Yes.
But we can't force the cities to do that. The citizens of that city can. And so this reduction in the power of eminent domain is one step to try to get the public to push their city council to say, we need to get a direct accountability to whoever is going to make the decision about taking someone's private property through eminent domain. And we have the hospital district now in Kootenai. I don't know, because there's no emergency clause on my bill on purpose, it just wouldn't have gone if it had an emergency clause, which would put it into effect as soon as the governor signs it. But it will go into effect July 1st, like all laws do, unless they have an emergency clause. And so the hospital district is a fully built-out area of town. It is not an open piece of ground out in the boonies. It's right there in the center of town. So when they reroute those traffic lanes, they're going to have to either buy, straight out market buy, or use eminent domain, which they say they don't want to, but they have the right to, and they're unelected people. We need direct accountability from whoever makes that eminent domain decision to the voters. And so if they're not elected, it goes to the city to make the final decision on eminent domain. All of us as citizens need to keep track of what's going on and make sure when our city elections come around, we push our elected officials to either make Urban Renewal Board stand for public election, or the city council will take the political heat.
Well, that was one of the questions that was asked at flurry there. So